my friends, hello everybody, welcome and thank you. This is Gosha from Cosmic Agency, and today I'm going to have a very interesting and very exciting chat video with you, which we did with Rachel. Yes, this is going to be the conversation that I had with Robert, with Rachel. Now, I'm gonna have to explain to you who Rachel is. Okay, so as you know, except for, apart from Svaru, there are a lot of Taigetan people up there in the orbit and beyond that. And Rachel, you would say, is a type of ambassador between Taigeta and the Federation, between Taigeta and other races, and also kind of Taigetan Federation ambassador for the Earth. She will explain that. She has been here since 1952. She's the one that has been here the longest, so she knows our affairs. She was here during the times of the war. Yes, and you understand why, even though I just said that she came in 1952. And she is the one, attention, I know it's hard to believe, but if we assume that they are who they say they are, and we of course do, so this is just incredible. She's the one that has talked to President Eisenhower. Yes. And now in this video I'm going to explain, well, I'm not going to explain, Rachel will explain how they were involved with Vril society and who Maria Orsic is. Yes, she will explain the link between them and the Vril society. Okay, I'm going to make it, I'm going to speed it up a little bit. I will just tell you that it's basically them. They have participated in this project. It was their project. They traveled back in time. It will be explained in the video. I'm just going to give you like a short summary so you know what this is about. Vril society was a secret occult, well, not so maybe secret, but occult esoteric society in Nazi Germany. And Maria Orsic was the German, so they said, lady who claimed to have extraterrestrial communication with the beings that supposedly are from Aldebaran. So she founded this society. She was the leader of the Vril society, in whose members, and you can find this online, this is not Rachel's information, this is general knowledge, whose members were young and attractive women. Yes, young and attractive, mysterious women with very, very long hair, and they had this hair to maintain their telepathic communication as antennas. And they were providing Germans interesting information. The Germans were very interested, were passionate about being the best at everything, especially technologically. So once they found out about Maria and about the contact she had with those extraterrestrials and about the information that she was providing, they got very interested. So she was, from what I think, providing them with a lot of information. She was also giving them the technology how to construct the ships. But now they were not, the ladies were not cooperating with the German Nazis. They were not actually aiding them with anything. That's another maybe distortion of what has happened, and Rachel will explain that too. What happened was that they planned to alter, to influence some events within the German Nazi society so they don't continue with their nuclear weapon developments. And in some way they were successful. So it will be explained in the video. What's really interesting is that in 1945, Maria Orsic and other members of the society mysteriously disappeared. And you can see it in the Wikipedia, it just says disappeared. They just disappeared, their bodies were never found, and just there was one note that Maria left, and that note said, "No one stays here," or "No one is here." And that's all, no one has ever heard from them ever since. They mysteriously appeared and they mysteriously disappeared. So now you'll see in this video what happened and who they really were. And now, if this is real, let's assume, I know there are some people who may not believe this communication, who may not believe our source. It's okay, but now let's take this for a second. Let's pause for a second. If they really are who they say they are, and they are the ones who are the members of the Vril society, they are the ones who talked to President Eisenhower, then the magnitude of this information and of this contact and of this information is just huge. I get shivers just thinking about this, because sometimes I maybe forget about it and then I sit down and I make myself realize, wait a second, what's happening? Who am I? Who have I just spoken to? Are they for real? Is this really what has happened? Is this really who they say they are? It's amazing, it's crazy, but you'll see everything is very coherent, everything makes sense. This is real, I truly believe it. Everything just falls into place listening to these messages, not only from Svaru, but now also from Rachel. So I'm going to leave you with a video, no further comments from me. This is going to be part 1, and in the second part of this video of chats with Rachel, she will explain her encounter with the President Eisenhower and what happened. And in her words, this is the first time she has been explaining publicly to the world what has happened. I'm just relating what she said. So I'm going to leave you with a video. Enjoy it, and until next time, bye.
Before continuing, I must tell you that I do not have detailed information about the Earth from the surface perspective that Svaru does, nor do I speak so many languages, nor do I have the same expanded perspective of the astral world that she does, but I do have my own experience, and I am open to what you need and do not need. My present crew is not qualified. They do not speak any language, or few do. It is not the focus or the purpose of this specific ship. Svaru told us that you were her mentor. She spoke very well of you. Yes, I've been her teacher and instructor, but now I am her student. And another thing that I want to clarify. Svaru has said that she does not represent Taygeta, much less the Federation, and that she only represents herself. With me, it is the opposite. I officially represent Taygeta here as a member of the High Council of Taygeta, and also as a representative of Taygeta before the Federation. I also represent it here. It's exactly my job and my role here. You can interpret my position here with human terminology as an ambassador. Ambassador between the race and civilization of Taygeta and the other races present here. Also, ambassador between Taygeta and Earth. The videos that people are uploading with requests for assistance to the Federation and benevolent races, is that useful? Svaru said that yes, a lot. They take them into account? It helps a lot, because it's not only the Federation that listens. Also, the other positive groups such as the Sphere Alliance, the Council of 5, Council of 9, among others. What is the Council of 5 and 9? That is new for me. I thought there were only 2 factions, Federation and Spheres. Oh no, there are so many factions that it's impossible to understand. It's just enough to know if they are positive or not. That is known only by their frequency. Those 2 that you mention are the biggest, but there are more. In all this, do the Earth Agarthians have any role? Agartha is officially part of the Federation. What happens with them is that they have so many problems as a race that they no longer work as members. They are part of the problem to be solved on Earth. I understand, Rachel. And do you like this post? It has to be quite difficult. Yes, it's a demanding position. Quite frustrating many times because the interaction between different races is very complicated. Just because they are positive races doesn't mean that they always get along well, because there are confusions. The most recurrent one is between races called cold and logical and emotional, temperamental ones. It is a diplomatic nightmare. I understand. Rachel, taking advantage of the time you are here with us now, in what year did you come exactly as Taigetans? In 1952, yes? And why? What has caused your arrival that year? And were you present on that expedition already? I arrived to the orbit of Earth in the year of 1952 as part of the first expedition of Taigeta, as a reaction to the atomic tests and the campaign of Federation and its friends' ships being shot down in those years and earlier. I was part of the crew of the first big ship here as a counselor. It was my first expedition to Earth, but I had experience elsewhere. Ships being shot down? Can you say something more about that, please? The two ships of Roswell and Aztec are publicized, but during the 40s to the 70s, about 40 ships of diverse origins were shot down, none of Taigeta. Who shot them down? The ships like the two of Roswell were shot down with the use of directed microwaves coming from the military radars. This fully on purpose. The microwave energy interferes with the sensors of some ships, blinding their computers. It does not allow them to know the exact frequency of the gravitational flow in which the ship is located, causing errors with gravity cancellation systems, resulting in crashes. Those ships were mostly shot down by the Americans and their allies, but also by the Russians later. There are many casualties of extraterrestrial beings in these ships. The purpose was to recover ET technology, right? It's correct. But those ET ships weren't prepared for this and didn't have protection systems so that it would not happen? Didn't they have some sort of alert system? Now they do, but back then they did not have it, or not all races. Taigeta, yes, we had it. But the ships of Taigeta, unlike those used by many other races, have multiple modes or propulsion systems. If one fails, the others come in. The two ships of Zeta Reticuli shot down in Roswell, for example, only operated with propulsion of manipulation and cancellation of gravity. You said they were Russians and Americans who shot them down, but they were Russians and Americans in the sense that it was the Cabal, the Reptilians, or pure humans? It's Cabal, and it also operated from Russia. The Cold War was fabricated. They controlled both sides. You want to say that those ETs thought that on Earth we were all saints? No saints, no way. Rather, they thought the humans were more primitive, technologically speaking. Zeta Reticuli, wow. From what I understand, they are the beings that lost their connection with the Source and had some evil plan for the humans. I have read it somewhere. I am afraid it's not true. In any case, it would refer to the grace of Orion, not the Reticuli. And everyone has a connection with the Source. The Source understands both the positive and the negative, because it does not judge, it just is. Judging is only property of incarnated beings with limited points of attention. This, the words of Svaru. Zeta Reticuli are small positive grays that many call gardeners. Zeta Reticuli are the gardeners then, just to clarify. Among other places, yes, mostly Zeta. Orions are negative. Zeta Reticuli are the positive gardeners whose mission is to take care of the biology of a planet or planets. Gardeners, everyone is positive. It can be said that they work for the source. Only nowadays, Orion has already changed a lot and they are very positive now. But that transition excludes the Greys. They are called Maitre and are known as tall Greys. It is believed that they were the biological creation of the Orion reptiles. I must also say that there are at least 165 different races or types of Greys. The Maitre are in Mars. Right, they have dominated 1/3 of Mars, and they are on Earth in the bases underground. They collaborate with the reptiles and the Cabal. Rachel, according to your negotiations with the US government, who is above the pyramid? I do not see fit to publish that information at this time. I understand. Thanks, Rachel. The Earth is dominated by these races. Is there some kind of treaty for which the Earth has lost all its sovereignty? There are many treaties. Some are thousands of years old. New treaties were made in the 1930s by Nazi Germany and in the 1950s by the Americans, also under Nazi control. In the 50s, Eisenhower made a treaty to exchange technology for freedom to exploit the human population, abductions and experiments, among other things. That is to say that Eisenhower was part of the Cabal. Sincerely, we still do not understand his role inside the Cabal, because on the one hand, he seems to be inside with them, but on the other one, he also seems to have alerted the population and the government of Cabal's problems and dangers. Yes, it was he who made that treaty, although the Nazis had also done it by 1937. Well, if he signed this treaty, there are no excuses for this. Yes, unfortunately, it was he who accepted it. At this point, how do you want to move forward with the subject? Well, we could ask you more about the Eisenhower, or I would prefer to ask more about the current situation related to the liberation of the Earth. Because Eisenhower, that's the past in some sense, and maybe we can talk about it later. Okay, although everything is intrinsically related. In this case, explain this relation, please, if you wish. I do not understand much about politics, and I am sure that's the reason why I do not see the links between things like you do. It's okay. Let's go little by little and in parts. Okay, then, let's return to the beginning, before Eisenhower. You have arrived in 1952. And what happened? What was your discovery and how have you assessed the situation on Earth? At that time, an alert was received from the entire Federation because of what happened since the Second World War, specifically because of the detonation of nuclear weapons. It is known that a nuclear detonation passes or affects several existential dimensions or planes at the same time. It is termed here scalar, but it can differ in meaning on Earth. The races that are most similar to the human race have always been closer, intervening more than those that are not. Therefore, it was up to Taygeta. Upon examining the situation from the orbit, we tried to send 2 crews of hunting ships called Sandcloak to the 30s to stop the Nazi development that triggered the Second World War and the development of nuclear weapons. The Sandcloak crews went from 1952 to 1937 and interacted with the Nazis. Time travel? Yes, the hunting ships with Sandcloak capacity travel in time. Look at this video. That's us. Maria Orsic is Taygetan? Yes. Once again, the true story has been distorted, and it seems like we collaborate with them, the Nazis. When we are trying to divert the events, we try to alter the history. Are these drawings or photos? They are drawings from photos. Maria Orsic was actually Savia of Erra. I do not think I'm in those photos there, although I was there. She was the leader of the expedition, and yes, it was possible to stop the progress of the German investigations on nuclear bombs. The advancement of the Nazi heavy water laboratories was halted. So the mission was successful. Svaru always said that the collective timeline cannot be changed. Partially successful. And the mission was only partially successful and not totally successful for reasons later explained by Svaru of Erra, also a fighter pilot with Sandclog qualifications. But the mission was necessary. It was necessary to intervene and infiltrate the German society of the time. And with our appearance, it was not difficult. Just you or many more Taygetans? 2 crews of 7, 14 in total, 2 ships, men and women. How long have you stayed? And 3D didn't affect you? We did not stay for more than 2 weeks, and we were going back, only to come back again. The 3D hurts us. We cannot be there long without getting sick. It must be disgusting and toxic to be here, right? How does it feel to be in 3D coming from 5D? It feels doughy all over. You feel sick and slow. The gravity is very strong and makes you feel very weak. Everything smells, everything affects you. The energy is very low. It feels like walking in water up to your thighs. You walk with difficulty. You need a lot of recovery and sleep after being in 3D only for a short time. And it affects you mentally. It is depressing. It lowers the vibration. You can start to manifest negative things because of it. The rhythm of history would have changed a lot without your intervention. According to Svaru, the result would be the same if the Germans had the bomb first, because Germany lost the war, but the Nazi won. They only emigrated to the United States. Okay, and how have you managed to do this intervention despite all the laws of non-interferences? What did the Federation say in this case? The Federation accepted the intervention of the Sandclog crews in the 30s up to the year 45 because it was only a surgical mission. And the legal justification for the intervention was based on stopping the use of nuclear energy in general, not only for war purposes. This cancelled many subsections of non-intervention and is the primary cause of the mass arrival of the Federation from the year 52 on. Nuclear energy in human hands is the basis of what keeps us here until these days. Okay, thank you. I would like to know if we can share all this, Rachel. You are welcome. Yes, everything can be shared, unless we agree otherwise about one or another topic. If you want to share about who I am, I must give you another piece of information that will be interesting to you. I am half Taygetan by mother and half Antarian by father. I was born in Temer, but both cultures are mine. Antarian, and how are they? What is the difference between them and Taygetans? Unlike many other races, Antaria can procreate with Taygeta. Very few can. We are basically the same race. Only Taygetans are mostly blonde in appearance and have blue or green eyes. Antarians usually have dark hair, very white skin, and mostly green eyes. And everything that describes Taygeta also applies to Antaria. The differences are small. That's why they are compatible. My hair is dark brown, my skin is white, and My eyes are green. I am 1 meter 60 centimeters tall. I see myself as a 25-year-old woman as a reference. And I was born in the terrestrial year calculated of 1832 on May 20th. How nice. I identify a lot with people with white skin and dark hair, more than blondes. Svaru told us, without saying it openly, that here humans are not very handsome. Your DNA is not fully activated. You are a caricature of your true physique that would be the correct interpretation of your creative intention as souls to incarnate. Also, most of the humans are sick and age there as a consequence of the linear perception of time. We are walking caricatures, what a pity. Well, it is what it is. What's important is accepting our shortcomings here. There is no other way. And to know that we are more, and that this is just our temporary suit. Svaru says it's part of the experience, of the teaching that comes from being there. Yes, we experience being ugly and defective. She said it's for the contrast too, to have the experience of becoming complete afterwards. It's true, yes. Rachel, how do you feel talking to us? Tired? Svaru gets tired sometimes talking to many people at once. No, I find you very nice, and I feel a lot of familiarity. I was tense yesterday, but not anymore. If you want, we'll leave it for today, Rachel, and no worries, you can always share anything with us. We are very open and tolerant, and no longer so nervous talking to you. We feel as if talking to a friend. Svaru tried everything at once and mostly succeeded, like interacting simultaneously with 3 or 4 different people and doing it with only one eye. Poor thing. Well, see you again on Sunday, yes? And thanks for being with us. It was a pleasure talking to you. Bye, Rachel. Likewise. Have a rest and good night to both. Bye. I'm curious about your meeting with Eisenhower. Can I start with questions, please? Go ahead. Thanks. How was the meeting organized? How was the first contact with members of the US government? The Federation from here, from the High Council, has sent the message to President Eisenhower via imposition of radio frequencies breaking into the Pentagon that was then new in 1947. It was the only way for our contact to be taken as true. You have to keep in mind that back then there was not as much disinformation and pranks as there is now. As a representative of the Federation and with English proficiency, I was proposed as the contact. The first contact was made at the Edwards base in California on February 18, 1954. No Holoman, Edwards AFB. The reason is that this base has a very large extension of tracks on a large plane. It was later used as an emergency runway for the space shuttle and was far from the public eyes. But we came here as a team in 1952, and from there, some of us, to 1937. Eisenhower was urged to take the strictest security measures to avoid a mishap between our two races if there was an attack on us. Even so, we were heavily armed and in high-tech suits that absorb impacts of kinetic weapons and energy. Ike accepted. On February 18, 1954, first landed the presidential plane. It was not yet a Lockheed Constellation Tetra engine, but a smaller twin-engine Lockheed Electra similar to the one used by Amelia Earhart on her fateful journey. The Electra landed at the end of the furthest runway, and there it remained without anyone leaving. We, from above, in invisible stealth mode, were observing everything from about 300 feet high, AGL, above ground level altitude, contrary to mean sea level or MSL. There was only one jeep in sight, with military personnel with rifles, and we asked Ike to radio him away. We also asked him to turn off the radars that were still operating at that moment. They complied. We proceeded to go down and allow them to see our 22-meter Class 3 discoidal ship that we proceeded to land in front of the nose of Ike's Electra. We opened the ramp and the Electra did the same. Ike went down the ramp dressed military in his sand-colored suit with a hat and emblems. I did the same, dressed only in a bluish-gray one-piece suit. They could see that I was not armed. I could not see the same in Ike, but our instrumentation indicated that he was. We arrived about 2 meters from each other and we stopped there. I introduced myself as Rachel of Temer of the High Council and as the person with whom he had been speaking. Ike, very correct in his role as head of state, showed no courtesy to me. He just said, "Cut the crap and tell me what you want." I proposed to him that Taygeta could give him energy and free reactors, as well as electric transmission for all, in exchange for total nuclear disarmament. He just observed me. I insisted that ionizing nuclear power would only bring problems to humanity, and that there were better energy options that we were willing to give them for free in exchange for disarmament. Ike interrupted me strongly and said that he would not, because the Russians would have a high hand against the United States. I insisted that the Russians should also give up all their weapons and technology. Ike just kept interrupting me, insisting that it was just a communist ploy to disarm the United States. I assured him that it was not the case. He did not listen to me and said loudly that the meeting was over. He did some kind of oriental reverence, I don't know its name, lowering his head momentarily. He turned around and entered his plane. I boarded my ship and retreated. End of first meeting. Rachel, thank you very much for sharing. I have a couple of questions, if you don't mind. When he saw you, what face did he have? Was he surprised to see a young girl of Earth appearance? Yes, I know that had to do with his attitude. And that also caused conflict during the following night contact between February 20th and 21st. Maybe a Taigetan man had to come out with armor and armed. In hindsight, that should have been the case. We've thought about it before, and not only thought about it, it is already in the records that it should have happened that way. Humans like to be impressed. But you have to keep in mind that if today it is difficult to find someone here who speaks English, on that day it was even more difficult. We understand that Ike gave as an excuse to see us going to see his dentist. I don't have more details about that. Upon arriving at our ship, we immediately discussed what happened and insisted on talking to Ike on the radio for a new interview. We had to threaten him practically. We told him that if he did not listen to us, we would only go with the Russians. On the night of February 20th, in the same place, Edwards base, the second encounter with him took place, and in the same manner. Only that for some reason there were more military personnel in the radar installations and in jeep vehicles on the ground. Our sensors indicated that they were unarmed. Once again he came out, much faster this time, trusting more, I suppose. I greeted him the way it is done here, like what you do as a stop sign. Once again I offered him the same as the day before. Ike just replied that there was nothing I could offer him that they did not have. And he accused me of not being extraterrestrial, but of being a Nazi, because I had been recognized in photos of Germany of the 30s and 40s of the Vril Society, and that I, with my companions, were a Nazi girls hiding in Antarctica. Once more, he just turned around and returned to his plane. I did not see him again. The following encounters were realized by my companions from 1957 to 1960. They were equally brief and useless. Clearly, he had already made an agreement with Maitre beings when they arrived, because Maitre offered them destructive technology in exchange for accessing the human and animal population for their purposes. Maitre said that it was limited and that they would inform the government of any movement, which logically they never did. The technology given by Maitre was only half-hearted, with no key components, which is why there are later reports of experimental ships failing or melting in front of witnesses. They said that they would give those missing components only in exchange for bases, let them build bases. The United States government complied again. For us, and for the Federation at that time, it was already clear that diplomatic means would not work. Contact with the government of the United States was stopped. Thank you very much for sharing, Rachel. What I would have said to him was, thank you very much, I have a meeting now with the Kremlin. You always have to press a little to get to negotiate with them. It's basically what we did, so he agrees to the second meeting. During their first encounter, we detected that inside the Electra plane there were several people, and later we found one of them out to be an agent of the CIA documenting the meeting. That's where the relationship with the Nazi girls came from. The Vril story and our connection with that, we'll leave it for another time. Not all the girls working for Thule and for Vril Society are us. There were others there who had already channeled toroidal propulsion technology for the Luftwaffe. this is another issue that we must deal with in detail at some point. Yes, Rachel, no worries. I just want to ask questions about what is shared today. Go ahead. I must emphasize, though, that the attempt to control Nazi technology on our part is directly related to the failed encounter with Eisenhower, as described above. I understand. My question is, why the US and not another country like Russia or Germany or Japan or Great Britain, for example? Thank you. Because at that time it was the leader in nuclear weapons field, and because we knew of the presence of German scientists from the Paperclip project. And I think it's clear that the information shared by me today is nowhere to be found. I just want to emphasize that. Much less the connection Vril-Eisenhower. Thank you, Rachel, again. It's an honor for me to have you share your time with me. And can you specify more that connection, please? Our failure in the negotiations was mainly due to the Vril incident. By relating us with the Vril and the Nazi hiding in Antarctica, Eisenhower would not take us seriously. We could not explain him our attempt to infiltrate Nazi Germany at the highest level to halt the advancement of its nuclear program and the manufacturing of discoidal spacecraft of the Hannibal type. Discs with which they tried to reach Aldebaran for a supposed relationship between Germany and Sindriel, Aldebaran I, as the origin of the Aryan race. Sindriel is until this date the largest Taygeta colony outside of the Pleiades. Wow, thanks. The Nazis wanted to contact Taygeta? They said they were from Sindriel, with another name. They did not say they wanted to contact Taygeta, but with their ancestors to ask for help, since they were already at war. This is because there is phonetic similarity in some Sumerian tablets with the grammatical construction of the ancient or primary German language from which modern German developed. That pointed to Aldebaran. Contrary to what is said, the German Hannibal ships did enter combat against Allied bombers more than once. But they were removed from service because it had already been decided at the highest level that Germany should lose the war, because the same ones were controlling both sides. Among them, the British royalty and Hitler, related to them as is today Angela Merkel. It's the only reason why the Hannibal were removed. Since then, the Hannibal withdrew to their new bases in Neuschwabenland, Antarctica, from mid-1944. Wow, and what fuel did those Hannibal ships use? I am not sure about the fuel, just about the magnetic engine technology. Zvaro would know. Rachel, thank you very much again for sharing. In Antarctica, there is a German dissident civilization. Do you know anything about that? Sure, yes. Neuschwabenland is still there now, with a high-technology dump. Still there. Reason also why Antarctica is closed to the population in general. It's all theater that you can go there. But it's difficult, and there are only limited coastal and boat tours. It has to be understood that Nazi Germany moved to the US with the Paperclip project. So Neuschwabenland is just a one more dump connected to Area 51, S4, Dagway AFB, Ray Patterson, and other places related to super-secret technology of propulsion material and ships. They are not there isolated. Neuschwabenland is part of the cabal and the controllers, who in the end are the reptiles. Thule and Vril societies are just anterooms to talk to the reptilians. US politicians who have visited Antarctica go to Noordschwabenland, exactly there. But this is not known in the normal media. Exclusive for you, in 1947, the Admiral Richard Byrd faced the Nazi Hannibal during the Operation High Jump. Thank you. That dump must be like a big city. It is a huge area that comprises an open area without ice, kept like this by artificial means, and a large 12-level underground complex that includes facilities for ships and also bases for nuclear submarines. Another point here that will be hard for the viewers of your channel to believe is that Area 51 in Nevada, in the desert inland at the lowest level 7, also has a base for US Navy nuclear submarines. Since Area 51 is administered by the US Navy and officially is a naval base. Submarines enter through the entrances of the Santa Monica Bay near Los Angeles. Fascinating. What relationship do Maitre have with the reptiles? It's a cooperative relationship, but they get along very badly, and it's common for there to be fights with fatal results between them. If ethics are concerned, the Maitre are even more backward than the Reptilians. Even so, they codepend and tolerate each other as races. What do they eat, the Maitre? Also humans? Reptiles are carnivores. Maitre suck lymphatic material and liquidated material from its victims. Both live on lush or energy of fear, but they take advantage of it in a different way. Are victims of Maitre also human? Yes, the victims of both races are human. What will happen to all of them when the Federation comes down to the surface of the Earth, if that would ever happen? They will be arrested and removed from the planet, or they would stay in another timeline. Do they have any degree of spirituality higher than the humans? I say this because of their ships. No, rather they use tricks in order to avoid spirituality. That is, they use transit through portals, and their movement is limited by their same low frequency, not being able to access many places that would be toxic to them, and that is most of the galaxy. This is also why they need to keep the Earth in low 3D. At what density are they again? From 3D to 4D. For 5D, they need technology to keep themselves in low vibration. The same happens on Mars, but there they keep their frequency low artificially within their underground bases. Yes, they do come up to the surface, but in a limited way, with suits. Thank you very much, Rashid. as the Great Expansion of Lyra, or simply the Great Expansion. Countless worlds were seeded with humans, the species, among them Taygeta, Ummo, Earth. Reptiles continued to hunt the species to the brink of extinction. From the need to survive, the Federation, how it is now known, was born. The Federation is made up of thousands of species, but it was started by humanoid species as a means to defend themselves from the reptilian invasion in this quadrant of space against total extinction, as some planets with Lyrian humanoids were or had been so devastated by the Reptilians that only a handful of individuals remained. There was a Lyrian colony living in peace on Earth, in a high-frequency advanced holographic society, although on Earth there were already other species of hominids before the Lyrians arrived. The first humans from Lyra landed on the planet around 40,000 years ago, living in peace and harmony with older species like the Neanderthals. These are old, pre-Atlantis civilization times with spaceports. During that time, when that advanced holographic civilization was on Earth, a Taygetan Pleiadian colony was established that coexisted in peace and cooperation with the Lyrians. That Taygetan base was on a now defunct continent called Oceania. That base or colony was called Lemuria. This is before Atlantis. It was only a colony within a larger planet-scale positive civilization, and it coexisted with the Lyrian civilization present on Earth. Lemuria was a complex civilization, not only of Taygetans, but it did have a very large Taygetan component as their colony. Something like New York is a group of cultures, like Little Italy, Little China, Irish, Russians. This civilization got invaded by the reptiles. This happened after a great battle known as the First Ancient War by the researchers of Ancient Aliens, where nuclear weapons were used against them. That's why there are traces of bomb-grade ionizing radioactivity in places like Pakistan. The only part of that planetary civilization that remained fighting was Lemuria, as the reptiles enslaved the rest of the humanoids. Lemuria fought the invaders. Those who remained were called Adams by the Reptilians, or Adamic race. That referred to the captured Lyrians and the ones who descended from them, as this took or was going on for several generations, 40,000 years ago, to 13,000, 500 years ago. Children were separated from adults. Some were used for parenting, where newborn babies were separated from their mothers at birth. These newborns were indoctrinated with reptile teachings. but they were also genetically altered. It was attempted but failed because of the very strong connection to Source that all Lyrian races have. The adults were slaughtered and eaten. The children were left to start a new race of slaves, the Adamic race. In the Old Testament, it should be read that a person there means a race or a people and not an individual. But now, I must say that the invading reptilians created, using genetics out of themselves, another race of reptilians that is now indigenous of Earth. That race is still enslaved by them. They used part of their genes to enhance and use another indigenous reptilian race, probably an animal. They did that right before the confrontation of Tiamat, and right before the flood that destroyed it all, their technology and civilization, to be explained shortly. That created reptilian race survived the flood, and they are the ones that do all the reptilian low, dirty work for the supreme reptilians. The first two attempts to do the same with the anthropomorphic Lyrians didn't work because they all had a very strong connection with Source and the spiritual. The Lyrian genetics is too strong. So if they suppress a gene, it will emerge again because of the high consciousness of the people. So they decided not to try to genetically suppress humans, Adamic race or Homo Atlantis, and opted to suppress reptilian DNA. So in the end, what the Sumerian tablets say is false, because humans were not created on Earth, nor were they successfully limited genetically. The limited ones are the reptilian slave race. The Lyrian Homo Atlantis are only limited by belief in a genetic manner. Humans are limited only because they believe to be, even with aging. This is very important as a topic, because I go against what is said in the Sumerian tablets and other places like the Popol Vuh, insisting that it's not humans who are limited, but the lower social level reptilians. Now, we have a problem with naming the reptile species involved here. Some say it's the Usungal, others the Kingu, using names you know from Earth. We here do know who they were. We are just not sure if the translation for them should be Kingu or Usungal. For us, basically, it's the Naga and variants. The reptiles at that point created their stronghold called Atlantis that was over the continent now known as Appalachia, which is now under the North Atlantic Ocean. This is from where the name of the Appalachian Mountains in East United States take their name. Having said that, Atlantis is not a single place because it was an almost entirely planetary civilization. Atlantis is the reptilian civilization coexisting with Lemuria that didn't give up. Earth has been visited countless times by countless races who have left their influence there. Atlantis is widely said to be a bastion of wisdom and to be very advanced. Very advanced indeed. But it was an almost exclusively reptilian place. People on Earth are mixing qualities of Atlantis with qualities of Lyra Gaia. But they are two civilizations, where the first, Lyra Gaia, is the one that was completely like an embassy where countless races coexisted freely. Among those races were the Atlanteans, who come, as their name suggests, from the solar system of Atlas in the Pleiades M45. These are some of those that are called giants. However, there were other races who were also tall. The ones depicted in the Sumerian tablets were apparently reptilians transformed into something of a humanoid appearance for their easier interaction with the Adamic race, descendants of the Lyrian base. And mainly, these are the ones represented as large bearded men in the Sumerian records. However, the Atlanteans of the Pleiades also have beards and similar size, which makes it difficult to follow and explain this historical moment with precision. The Atlanteans are 8 to 10 meters tall. Their skin is copper-colored, brown or black beard, blue, green or brown eyes. Apparently, the Atlanteans influenced several places in Mesoamerica mainly. The last visit of them that we have registered was 600 years ago in the region that today is central Mexico, Tula Hidalgo, Atlantis. They have not returned. They are members of the Council of Alcyone, and effectively by decree of said council, it is Taygeta who represents here the 9 systems of Pleiades M45. Among the races present here, when Lyra Gaia was invaded, were Seleno-Pleiadians and Andromedan bases or colonies in the area that is today India and Pakistan. These races seeded many concepts that would later serve as a basis for Buddha and that led him towards everything he did. Many beings like Shiva were extraterrestrials, and this also directly explains why various beings appear as blue-skinned in India and in that region of the planet in general. They were simply extraterrestrials of Andromedan genetic branches. Also, their writings like Nepali is preserved with up to 90% similarity with the symbology and writing of the modern Andromedan language. Shiva fought against the invading reptiles, and it is said that he won all the battles. However, the outcome disappears from the records. Obviously, the most probable thing is that he has also succumbed to reptilian weapons, with Lemuria remaining as the only place with effective resistance against the reptilian invasion. To clarify, Lemuria predates Atlantis. It coexisted with both the Lyrians and the reptiles of Atlantis. The Adamic slave race of the reptiles, the civilization of Atlantis, Old Testament. What happened at this point is that the Taygetan Pleiadians at the Lemurian resistance base knew that all this was happening with the Lyrian race, and they knew they had to intervene. They counter-attacked and managed to free the enslaved Adams. And now begins Genesis. From the Old Testament, Genesis, it means the genes of the goddess Isis. Adam and Eve in the Bible is this event. As the Old Testament says, the snake, the Taygetan women of Lemuria, went onto the Garden of Eden, Atlantis' stronghold, and gave the prohibited fruit of wisdom to Adam and Eve. The Adamic race, not one man, an enslaved race. They gave it to Eve because as women, they had access to the places where they were being held captive, where they were spending time, where the Taygetan women were passing as them. So they interacted with the females first. Then the Eves communicated the messages of the Taygetans to the Adams. The ancient reptiles used the serpent as a symbol for women because of its similarity to the DNA spiral, because it is the woman that gives descendants with her genes. The Egyptian hieroglyph for woman is a snake, and it is repeated in other parts of the world, China, Japan, Mesoamerica, and others. They were naked, without knowledge, and the serpent, Taygetans, gave the forbidden fruit, truth and knowledge, to Evas, who in turn gave it to the Adams. The Adams, the race, didn't have any freedom, and they had no means to reach higher knowledge. This to enslave them, to be naked, not to have knowledge, no clothes, knowledge. The reptiles got very angry because the Lemurians had freed the enslaved ones, and they started a war of extermination against what remained of Lemuria 1200,500 years ago. And this is the second great planetary scale war that also led into the Tiamat incident. But this is relevant in another way. This is why women are always repressed on Earth. This is where it started. The reptilians in power don't want women to have any rights, nothing, no power, always diminishing women as a punishment for this. That is why the reptiles, until these days, are against the woman. They attack her and they despise her, taking away the cult of the goddess, for example in Egypt, at a later time. The snake is us, Taygetan Pleiadians. The Eves are the females of the Adamic race who were the first ones to listen to the Taygetans, and then gave the males the information that led to their freedom. Adam, male Lyrian slaves. Eve's, Lyrian female slaves. Snake, Taygetan women, symbolizing genetic kinship with the Illyrians. Garden of Eden, Atlantis. Now, where was the Garden of Eden, according to scholars? Between the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers in Iraq. The Atlantis headquarters, not the bulk of the civilization that was planetary with the exception of Lemuria, was right there in Iraq, and some scholars have found it. There in Iraq was the Garden of Eden, or the main stronghold of Atlantis, although the bulk of the civilization was on Appalachia. Reptiles don't forgive this fact, which took away control over their slaves, who logically armed a great revolt and ran away from Atlantis. They were not expelled, they left, because they already knew themselves naked, without knowledge, and wanted freedom. The furious reptiles then set up another great hunt, with a subsequent massacre of Illyrians and Pleiadians, with some surviving. Lemuria was still standing and fighting. And it is what we do now again, making the Adamic race, or Homo Atlantis, the Earth humans, see that they have no knowledge, that they are naked, and that they must wake up. Tiamat. Tiamat, the planet that was destroyed 12,500 years ago, was a very large planet, about 80% the size of Neptune, and was closer to Earth than Mars is today. It was a water planet with few islands and very luminescent, because with its large size, it reflected the sun a lot. And this is the source of all the myths associated with two suns in this star system. Tiamat, being a water planet, functioned as a mirror, which is why they called it the second sun. Ancient records on Earth talk about a second sun. It's not only in the Sumerian tablets, but in scripts from China, Japan, and even in Mesoamerica, in the Popol Vuh Mayan. This also has fueled the Nibiru ideas all over today. This second sun is no other than Tiamat, not a sun, a planet, but as it was a huge water planet closer to Earth than Venus is now, mostly sea, it reflected the sun's light, appearing as a second sun. Continuing with the story, the Reptilians, learning that the Federation was looking for them for violating countless space rules and laws, set up a fictitious base on planet Tiamat to transmit decoy signals to mount an ambush against the Federation. The Federation was on their way already too, to see why contact with the Lemurian base and the Illyrian colony had been lost. A large combat fleet, led by Taygeta, entered and went to Tiamat to investigate the signals, and they fell terribly into the reptilian ambush. There was tremendous space combat of epic proportions, even by today's standards, and it resulted in the destruction of more than 75% of the forces of both the Federation and the Reptilians. weapons of mass destruction, zero-point and thermonuclear energy weapons were used, which destabilized the planet Tiamat, creating shockwaves in its great ocean that resulted in the deviation of its magnetosphere, resulting in the destruction of the planet. The surface of Mars was also devastated by nuclear and energy weapons. The destruction of Tiamat brought subsequent chaos to all the delicate dynamics between the planets of this solar system. It brought with it a series of cataclysms on all the planets, creating with this a new orbital distribution of all the stars. And as we have said before, the Earth was closer to Tiamat than it is to Mars today. And that is why some of the water from Tiamat fell on Earth, which, as we have said, was a very large planet, almost the size of Neptune, and covered with water, flooding the surface of the Earth that at that time was almost entirely covered by dense forests and had 5 more continents. The flood brought with it the destruction of the reptile civilization of Atlantis and of Lemuria. The upheaval brought the deluge, Noah's Ark legend, that was nothing other than Tiamat's water, some of it pouring down to Earth from space. It's what destroyed Atlantis and Lemuria. Also caused a pole shift, inundated the planet and created the continents as they are now. This also devastated the surface of Mars, so the inhabitants of that planet to this day stay mostly underground. For us, nothing justifies the destruction of an entire planet, and a lot of species karma is carried for that, they say. That confrontation and the war for Earth today is the continuation of the Orion Wars. They are not over yet. They are going today. The difference is that now the Federation has superiority over the regressive reptiles. So, when the floods happened by the Tiamat Wars, as Lemuria was destroyed by the floods, so was Atlantis. Yes, both perished at the same time. Okay, so who remained on Earth? A vastly destroyed reptilian culture with no technology left and a small amount of Valyrian people. They enslaved them before the flood, then after using mind control, as the Reptilians were very few in numbers as compared to the Valyrians that are now the forefathers of the Earth humans of today, Adamic race. They didn't have any remaining technology, so all they had was the mind control approach. 3D matrix suppression system was placed by the Federation right after the flood. At that time, the Federation was very weak and facing a lot of problems, also because of the cataclysms. I should mention that during the destruction of Tiamat and the subsequent rearrangement of the astros, planets of this solar system, the Earth also experienced a pole shift due to the alteration of magnetic fields. As a result, the Federation chose to install an electromagnetic magnetic barrier around the Earth as a wall. It is projected from one of the ships damaged during the conflict, the Moon, old and damaged biosphere ship of the Federation and of Andromedan construction. It was to prevent the negative reptilians from escaping, while the Federation could return to finish what they started. And thus, the 3D Matrix was born. Asks Robert, what happened with the survivors of the flood? Flood survivors, what remained of Lemuria, Lyrians, and Pleiadians there when the earth was flooded, emigrated mainly to the coast of Japan, what is now South America, and the west coast of the USA. In the Atlantic, what remained of Atlantis, the surviving reptilians and slaves moved to the highlands of Scotland and Ireland. Asks Robert. And who are those beings that have elongated skulls, Homo capensis? Are they still on Earth? They are one more species, very linked to Atlantis. After the flood, they migrated to the highlands of Scotland and Ireland, hence the name of Highlands. From there, they went down to places more akin to them, like Egypt. They also had large settlements in South America. They come from the constellation Cassiopeia, and they inhabit many worlds there. There aren't any on Earth at this time. They lost all their technology, their ships, and everything. In parentheses, there are no records of glaciation at this time. Very contrary to what established science says, there was no ice age. It was introduced as an excuse to erase the true history. Asks Robert. So those of us who are on Earth, we are not the variant that the reptiles created. I must make this very clear. As I said above, humans were not made by the reptilians. Their plan and their genetic engineering did not work because the base Lyrians themselves prevented it due to their advanced consciousness and connection to the source. What the Sumerian tablets say, and also the Popol Vuh, is information that was provided and or written by the reptilians, and is their point of view, with an agenda to control the humans, Lyrians. It's like a Bible again, a story rigged for an agenda. As I have said before, just because it is written in Sumerian tablets, it does not mean that it is the truth. It is written by the victors with an agenda. If these were their records, it would not be written in clay, but in quartz crystals, gold discs, or similar devices. The human beings are Lyrian, and their DNA is complete. It is only deactivated, but not by a test tube, but by the manipulation of human consciousness, because it is consciousness that activates, deactivates, and rewrites a gene, chain of genes, or the whole sequence of the genetics of a species. And it is also consciousness that creates a new species in this way, and not by random mutations or natural selection. That is why the spiritual awakening of humanity will return your DNA of 12 strands and 24 chromosomes, because it is already there, only suppressed with the use of mind control. The only thing that limits humans is the idea or belief that they are limited. Scientific ships like our ones have studied modern human DNA, and just like the results of the experiments of other races, it is confirmed that the DNA is complete. Pyramids are 100% of stellar construction. They are not from the indigenous population. They predate the very Egyptian culture and were built by a conglomerate of cooperative races of the Federation as generators of free energy and potentializers of consciousness for travel without a ship. More details to follow. They are energy power plants at a planetary level. General information. Age of construction. They, Giza, were built right after the flood, as the matrix was being installed, and also held the purpose of distributing worldwide the frequency that the moon was transmitting. Sphinx is like 30,000 years old, but the exact dates are sketchy even for me. As I have explained before, anything before the moon matrix is nearly impossible to calculate. In short, free electric power generator, supplying electricity to the base and nearby facilities. Frequency manipulation range in conjunction with other pyramids on the planet for planetary frequency manipulation from below. Naturalization and manipulation of frequencies of the lunar matrix. Physical dimensional portal for astral travel. Constructors, Federation Engineering. Any specific race that built them? Again, many races helped, not only one. It was a Federation effort. The Taigetans were involved, but not only. They were built as part of a planetary energy network by the Federation, multiple races, because it was a station or base mostly underground with 2 levels, that is still there. The main builder was Thoth, and they were built in a way that nobody considers today, which is the anti-gravity levitation of some stones assisted by internal cranes, which are still there. That is the basis of the anchors and where the huge cables or ropes and pulleys passed. This in the great chamber of the pyramid of Cheops. Yes, please explain, Svaru, exactly how they were built. It's the second question after what is their function that people ask. We will talk about the function later. Levitation with anti-gravity devices, then pulled to their locations with the use of a crane that was installed in the king's chamber, in the case of the Cheops pyramid. The pulleys and where the system was installed is still there. The levitation was only to remove most of its weight. The cranes? It was built in a spiral movement or way. How were the cranes powered? Electricity and hydraulics, main power with the small ones, because the stones were not that heavy. There was electricity? Back then, all Egypt had electricity in every home. They were built with several methods, not just one. Humans always expect only one. They mobilized quarry limestone, found further south, as officially described. They were cut with energy tools, industrial lasers, and compressed sound saws. More than anything, compressed sound saws. Lasers take second place. The stones were then levitated into place using anti-gravity and also sound. Sonic levitation is a system that is widely used in ancient constructions, including those in Peru, among other places. Even so, a system of support cranes was used that were in what is now known as the Great Chamber. A large external ramp was not used as many suggest, since the construction of said ramp exceeds that of the pyramid itself. That is illogical. But spiraling ramps were used within the same pyramid. Ramps that are still there because there are still hollow places. They are the ramps. Liquid stone, liquidated with sound, was used as a means of filling and holding or gluing between the stones and the structures. Liquid stone for the external ones. They were put into place with the use of molds. Liquid stone like cement? Not exactly. Components like cement are brittle and of inferior quality. I mean that with a certain temperature, assisted by sonic frequencies according to the frequency of the stone, it liquefies. This form of construction by liquefying stone is still used in Taygeta as a base construction medium for buildings and houses. That is not building by mold, that is constructing by cuts. It is made with a plasma tip, like a plasma laser beam, and according to what they say, that chaotic shape only increases the strength of the construction by having angular, pyramidal, triangular geometry of great structural strength. It should be said that each construction is different. The plasma tip does not apply in all places. Egyptian technology also used sound levitation without anti-gravity assistance. Comments Robert. Yes, especially the function of the pyramidon. What is pyramidon? Comments Robert. The tiny pyramid that was placed on top of the pyramid. The energy capacitator? It was pure white quartz, covered in gold leaf. Those ones were not at the tips of the pyramids. They had energy concentrating properties and served as wireless Tesla power transmission antennas. So, liquefied limestone with specific sound frequencies was used. You withdraw them and it returns to being solid. Local workers were used, not slaves. People who freely volunteered to work part-time, as happens in holographic societies. And advanced machinery. Also, not so advanced but efficient machinery, such as pulleys and cranes. Comments Robert. I wouldn't have minded working there. In good conditions, obviously. Yes, they were good conditions. Is this enough in terms of how they were built? I think so, Svaru. You will know better. I have no idea how they were built. Asks Robert. Who is credited with the construction? It is attributed to Enoch and Thoth. But as with everything, it was a cooperative construction of the Federation, with the local population as also part of the Federation or as under the Federation wing. Some say that Enoch and Thoth were the same person. Thank you very much. Okay, let's talk now about the function of pyramids. What are they? What are they for? So, the purpose was to generate power? They were not tombs, nor an astrological place. Yes, electricity. And to send power, electricity, all over the earth, no matter where you are. But also to stabilize the frequency of the entire planet. Make it even more positive, with an inverse manner than the moon does now. There are pyramids all over the earth, placed at ley line locations. All over the world, most are in China. It's all part of the same system. You could be anywhere on Earth back then, and you would have wireless power with this system. Why isn't it working anymore then? Because the cabal doesn't want it to work. Because there is no billing the population for free energy. It is a planetary scale free energy device. But it served other purposes, which I will go into a bit later. Pyramids are huge, impossible to manufacture without very high technology. Slaves? Not even as a joke. Plus, Egypt didn't use slaves. Notice the 8 sides of the Great Pyramid. Topography of the place. To understand the pyramid, you have to understand that it was not built only to be seen from below, but from above. And few people seem to know of ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. Many researchers indicate that the pyramids pointed to Alpha Draconis, but not only to Alpha Draconis, also to the Pleiades and Sirius. Pyramids on other worlds widespread use as free power plants with wireless electrical transmission, positioning on ley lines to increase and potentiate planetary effects, and depolarization between the charge of the atmosphere and the electrical charge of the ground. Primary grounding method by aquifer mantle. Type of energy, 0-point energy by charge differential. Wait, other worlds? You mean other planets? Correct. Usage is widespread in Federation worlds. In Taygeta, not to go any further, they are used as power generators. All this is 0-point energy. Here it says having the base at 440 Egyptian cubits, when my data tells me that it measures 365.25 Egyptian cubits. Same measure. Comments Robert. That is important, yes. For some esoteric reason, the truth is hidden, because all measurements are related to the dimensions of the Earth. Yes, but they can get us in trouble with that, and that's what they want, because they move or alter the calculations. Notice how the Queen's chamber is at the geometric point of the pyramid. That's where the power collector was. It was covered in polished white limestone. From inside, it was causing an internal bounce of particles coming from the atmosphere, entering through the crystal covered with gold at the tip. Pure white quartz covered with gold leaf. The particles come down from the atmosphere looking for Earth. They bounce off the white limestone that has piezoelectrical and insulating properties that prevent the electrical particles, be it positrons plus or electrons minus, because the polarity of the charge differential between the atmosphere and the soil varies and is inverted, from returning back to the atmosphere. They enter looking for land, because it is the point of greatest connection between the atmospheric charge and that of the ground. They bounce inwardly off the white limestone and concentrate in the Queen's chamber, where a depolarization to the ground takes place, as you can see above. What was covered in white? The whole pyramid, as in this photo, or collector of the energy inside? The whole pyramid. The energy is concentrated in the Queen's chamber and gets depolarized with the underground chamber that makes land and connects with the aquifers there, creating a concentrated differential of charges between sky and Earth. Comments Robert. It is clearly seen that it is a power generator. This is the same as having a continuous and voltage-regulated lightning bolt. The King's chamber served as a control room and for other uses of the pyramid, such as being a portal. Above the King's room was a series of high-tech capacitors that regulated energy depolarization. And for efficiency, it was set slightly to one side, so it would not interfere with the concentration of energy in the Queen's chamber. Even today, in the underground chamber, there are traces of cables and metal structures for grounding. It is dry now, but water was flowing, creating a potentialized Earth effect, which has been the ground connection collector, or the part opposite to the one above, the pyramid and its limestone that compressed and concentrated the atmospheric charge. This part potentiated the charge of the Earth, creating an enormous differential of charges between the atmosphere and the Earth. Clouds and ground, most of the time, not always, have opposite charges, especially in dry places, but not only. Lightning is a disarray and uncontrolled discharge of differential energy. But if you have a differential charge, although not dramatically different as to create discharge, lightning, you can channel it in an orderly and continuous way towards the ground. Then you have a place of continuous charge flow, and you have your free energy. That is why they are on ley lines and underground water, because you are giving them a greater connection to the ground, greater connection capacity and control of charge flow between the atmosphere and the ground. This is pure Tesla. He knew this. You do not need nuclear, hydroelectric, or thermoelectric reactors to generate electricity. You only need one or another pyramid. It is clean. It generates more energy than 50 nuclear power plants. It has other functions. It needs little maintenance. It does not generate anything. It only concentrates the charge differential between sky and Earth. It is the planet itself that creates the energy. Between sky and Earth, there is a change in polarity depending on atmospheric circumstances. It does not imply any problems because the pyramid only reverses electronically the charges with its internal devices, which are no longer there. The energy comes from a continuous and controlled ray and with regulated and therefore useful voltage. Understanding pre-classical ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, a square means space, cosmos. A square with an X in the middle means a place in the cosmos. A circle with an X means an exact, precise place. It means that it represents an exact place in the cosmos, not on Earth, as seen from above, as from a ship. The base is or measures 365.25 Egyptian cubits on each side. 440 is misinformation. I fully trust my data. Represents 1 Earth year for each side. The king's chamber measures 365.25 Egyptian inches on each side as well. You can see what's left of the collector's container. To the left of here, you can see a black box that is one of the narrow corridors, one of many in the pyramid. That goes about 4 meters from there and then goes up like 60 to where there is a small door of 14 centimeters by 14 centimeters. I can't get into mathematics, that is all over the pyramid, because apparently it differs from official terrestrial data. And although that may have a simple and surmountable explanation for us, I don't have it now, so this would require more time. The door in the picture is exactly 364 Egyptian inches tall. This piece is exactly 364 Egyptian inches tall. That corresponds to the 364 degrees of celestial movement of a star. That is the central base of the construction of the pyramid. The star is Enlil. The three stars of Orion that conspiracy Egyptologists take as something reptile is wrong, because in the past Osiris was related to Orion. It has nothing to do with reptiles or with grace or with Orion, as in those who come from there. Once again, it points to Taygeta, like the Apis bull. This idea of the Taurus constellation is non-terrestrial. Taurus itself, as a constellation, is dominated by the races of the Pleiades, found in the center of this constellation. In one of the horns is Aldebaran. It contains the only Taygetan colony outside of M45. Aldebaran shares energy from the ether side with this Sun 13 and with Alcyone, but it also shares with the star Enlil. Let's move on now to the underground chamber, marked with the number 3. Below, there is another larger chamber. At the bottom of this chamber, there is a pool of water with aquiferous mantles that connect with the Nile. It is still there, and Egyptologists, although many already know it, do not tell the people. I had to draw this myself, the blue lines and the red box. There is another chamber there. It contains at this time several misnamed sarcophagi with writing documents about the very pyramid, written in Moldavite stone. They hide this very well. They are not sarcophagi, they are containers. In this chamber, there is a rectangular corridor with 4 pillars in the corners, and in the center, a flooded chamber with a sarcophagus filled with Moldavite carved like the Thoth tablets. In this area, in red, marked by me, there are 2 domes, one above the other. The first one is 30 meters deep, the second 60. It contains innumerable rooms, corridors, hidden technology, systems like any other contemporary Federation base. The entrance is under the Sphinx, and the control is under the right ear. Are the pyramids still operational? What is missing to make them work properly? No, they are off. They do not have the electrical equipment inside to channel the energy. They do not have the quartz tip covered with gold, and they do not have their coating that gave them the ability to concentrate the energy. It was an insulation. Just as they are now, they dissipate their energy into the atmosphere again. They do not concentrate it in one point, King's Chamber. The charge of the atmosphere discharges towards the center of the pyramid, reaching Earth with the flow of underground water that connects to the Nile, using the earth and discharges room, Queen's Chamber. Without its smooth cover, its charge dissipates into the atmosphere. They have not removed it in order to use it elsewhere. They have removed it to stop its operation. That's why they don't have their covers. And only pyramids in Egypt have this function, or others in the world the same? There are many in Mexico. Same function? They all have the same primary function, but they are not all generators of free energy. Only some, not all, like the one of the sun, that is a generator. In some in Mexico, mercury has been found in large quantities. This proves that they were used as generators and as portals. But they were also built by you or other races. I imagine others. By others, because it was a federation, all conglomerate. Those from Crimea and Alaska are also from Taygeta or Council of Nine, Alcyone Council. Asks Robert, and why do they have that disposition as if it were Orion? I think you said it once, Varu. And is there any reason for them to be 3 pyramids with different sizes? It's a message, as a distraction even. It's kind of iconic. Orion is the most easily recognizable constellation from Earth, but the pyramids internally were focused on Alcyone, Sirius, Alpha Draconis. Returning to the function of the pyramids. Pyramids, what they are for, surpass human understanding, average at least. The function of free energy generators and others is not the primary function of the pyramids. That is the secondary function, incidentally. Primary one, they won't understand. It is a stargate, but it is not a portal, although it can be. That is something else. It is a mechanism that allows you to travel. Like I told you, like a warp ship engine in reverse. It is a place that potentiates the psychic, mental, and natural astral travel energy of each person. The energy flow described above, pure positronic energy of exact frequency compatible as constructive interference with the human aura and psychic energy. In contrast to Wi-Fi and invasive microwave electromagnetism, which is frequency destructive to human aura and human psychic energy. You go in there when it is working, and even as it is now, and you leave your body. You travel wherever. Yes, there are channels or small tunnels to focus on traveling to Sirius, among other places. Leaving the material body and being free in the astral through the universe. It was used as amplifiers of consciousness, where someone entered, leaving their body there in the king's chamber, and with that they traveled, astral projecting, wherever they wanted to go, outside of time and space. They could return to the pyramid a couple of hours later, but for them it could have been days, weeks, or months or years of travel experience. This is not a secondary use for the pyramid. it is considered one of the main uses. Even today, this works, but not with the same force or efficiency as in its day. One of the most important accounts is when Napoleon himself entered the Great Pyramid and spent the night there. It is well known that when he came out, he was no longer the same man. He had a very strong mystical revelation that night. Asks Robert. Would you advise me to travel to Egypt and enter the pyramids to meditate? Is it positive energy? Yes, it is positive, Robert. That is why I say they will not understand. Because it has no material function useful to the modern mind. Because it is to achieve things that are not supposed to exist. It is extraterrestrial understanding. You have to think like an extraterrestrial, not with material profit, nor with nonsense like religious beliefs like tombs that everyone knows they are not. Again, they tell you all in the Hollywood. In 1997, the film Contact with Jodie Foster was created, in which plans arrive from deep space to create an incredibly expensive large machine, which is believed to have many complicated functions, such as a portal or a means of transport. In the end, that great colossal machine is only to give a mystical experience to whoever makes it work. And you can see there how society discredits that experience in the end, worthless. That is what pyramids are. From the recent conversation with Yashi, they were constructed as power plants. Pyramids are the perfect shape for planetary-based zero-point energy. But as a side effect from such a power plant, they become portals as well, mostly astral portals, helping people fly, astral travel, remote view, live that way. They can also be full-blown portals where material things go to and from. They also work in an array, bringing a certain frequency to a planet, even moving the entire planet to a higher realm or density. They connect with others in key ley line places all over a planet and create an energy grid that sustains a planet in high vibration, and that can even be controlled at will. This is a very similar way a starship's engine keeps the ship and itself in another density wherever it is. Some pyramids don't even need to have complex mechanisms inside, as they work with vibrational synchronicity, reflecting and vibrating to the same frequency other pyramids vibrate to. With that, they also contribute to sustain the planetary frequency and also augment the power-producing efficiency of those that do have electric components inside. The pyramids are frequency generators. Placed there at the same time as the moon, they had to take part on the creation of the matrix. But under Federation control, they could be capable of removing the lunar matrix by changing the frequencies and mingling with the ones of the moon in a very real way, providing a way to control the frequency of the Earth without having to go all the way to the moon. Those are the main functions of a pyramid. They were built for those specific purposes from the very beginning. Also note that some pyramids were built as monuments to pyramids. I mean, they don't do much, only be there. Back to previous conversation with Vril. Questions? Okay, yeah, thank you. And thanks for the effort with the images and drawings. Fascinating topics. So then, that's what also served the pyramids? To increase one's potential as the portal? But if the builders were so advanced, they should have been able to achieve it with their own bodies, right? Like this gentleman from India. As I have already told you, the true purpose of the Great Pyramids is to augment the potential of everyone who is inside them for interstellar travel at will. Astral flight, with or without the physical body, remains the same. The transmutation of personal energy, of the self, into another dimension, with all intention of doing it or achieving it. Yes, it can be done without a pyramid, because you are an energetic torus, and an energetic torus is a Merkaba, which are two interlocking pyramids. You already are the pyramid. I understand. Under the pyramids, is there another inverted pyramid? Yes and no. A pyramid, the one on the physical side, it is what you see. The other pyramid is energetically intertwined with the one you can see. The other pyramid is inverted to form the Merkaba. It is not under the material pyramid, it is intertwined. Comments Robert. Wow, is it intertwined in an energetic way? One physical and the other non-material. A pyramid is material 124875. The other is on the other side, spirit world, the ether 369, creating the Merkaba, thus creating the flow of energy called free. Is it true that visualizing yourself in this Merkaba, it is a vehicle for interdimensional travel? Visualizing yourself is activating an intention. Yes, it works. That's how it works. Asks Robert. Do you know anything about very fine white sand found inside the pyramids? Note, the Nile passed over a part of the dome. White basalt? Comments Robert. Yes, powdered. I need more data. Comments Robert. There is a lot of it, like white sand. It's not sand. It is some material that the body gives off. It's there in large quantities. You have to consider that the pyramids were built with quarry stone that was found in the south and with liquid stone. It seems to me that it is part of the liquid stone, as what cement powder would be. I need more data. Asks Robert. And what does this image mean? The placement of the white limestone deck in place using levitation. Okay, I have two questions. First, why did the Federation choose Egypt as its main base? And second, related, what does it have to do with Israel? Does it have anything to do with it? Egypt, because it is in a specific place, like the geometric center of the earth, on the ley lines, and this increases the energy efficiency of the pyramids and also distributes and connects the energy distribution with other pyramids in other parts of the world, mostly also on ley lines. As the main point, it was chosen as the main dump base as well. Israel. This is getting into history. In themselves, the pyramids have nothing to do with Israel, other than as a connection to Isis, Ea, Ra, Anu, and Enki, El, Is, Ra, El, Trinity, Triangulum constellation, basis of the Kabbal's beliefs, and later by association with Akhenaten Nefertiti and the Exodus. Israel is a construction of the Kabbal. It started with Akhenaten and Nefertiti. There was no Jewish or Hebrew people, the idea or concept of the chosen people. Chosen as the gods, El, pointing them out. These gods with the Elohim, among which there are various races, including Taygeta. The so-called people of Israel, that itself takes its name from the Trinity of Triangulum, the base of Illuminati ideologies, as the triangle that looks at everything. Triangulum constellation, Eye of Horus. It is an ancient positive symbol hijacked by the Kabbal. So the Hebrew people are none other than the group of Egyptians who followed Akhenaten, Moses, and Nefertiti when they were expelled from Egypt by rioters, imposing their monotheism under the orders of Meritaten, working with Ramses II, circa 1330 BC. There are no Jewish genes. It is just an attribute to the people chosen by those who founded the Kabbal, Nefertiti, and her puppet Akhenaten. Asks Robert. Question. Dump as a general base for the United Federation of Planets. And if we went down into that dump, what could we find? Is there some kind of ancient library of knowledge? Some kind of quartz crystal or one of those New Age stories? Downstairs, there is a base as it was back then. That is, it does not look like an Egyptian relic, but they are metal and composite corridors with pneumatic doors and equipment below. I don't know what exactly, but I do know that there would be places of recreation, places with bedrooms, kitchens, common areas, laboratories, and rooms full of computer equipment and location navigation for ships, portals and warehouses, engineering places such as support and accommodation systems for various species, places like medical centers, medpods, small ships. In the computers, there will be information. Everything is dormant and damaged, but some things will work. It is equivalent to what was found under Mount Busegi. Asks Robert. Do the authorities know about this? Partially at best. They hide so much that I cannot know how much they know precisely. How long have the pyramids operated for? And when did they stop working? Could you locate us more or less in time? They worked for about 3,000 years, maybe more. I can't pin it down. In Meritaten's day, they no longer worked. Asks Robert. Do you know how fast the Great Pyramid was built? In a couple of years at the most. I cannot specify these last two questions. Okay, not a problem. I have another question. About the astral travel function, out-of-body travel. What is there in the pyramid that helped and made it possible? The pyramid shape or some technology apart from that? In other words, why couldn't it be done under some tree or something? It's mostly the shape of the pyramid itself. In itself, that geometric shape makes a spiral of energy rebound in its interior and is of high frequency. It is mainly concentrated in the Queen's chamber, but the entire interior is affected. This in itself increases the connection with Source, making all astral experiences more efficient. It is a natural hub or amplifier for consciousness due to its internal high frequencies. It is like immersing a person and body in a higher vibrational density. In fact, that's what happens inside. The frequency inside is much higher than outside. But why did it have to be so huge if only the shape helps? It could be 6 meters. You can fit there. Comments Robert. Maybe it has to be proportional to the Earth. In itself, any pyramid, even the size of a hand, increases the frequency in general. But at these larger sizes, the concentration of energy is gigantic. The Great Pyramid itself is one of the 3 master pyramids of the Earth, along with 2 other main ones. The one of the Sun in Mexico and the one in Alaska. Asks Robert. Alaska? I've never heard of that one. It is in a militarized zone. There is another there. There are pyramids everywhere on Earth, big and small, and even submerged, Bermuda. There is more in the Crimea, and there is a Taygeta base below, abandoned. Asks Robert. Would you advise us to go to the Great Pyramid, to the King's Chamber with quartz and do some meditation? Yes, if they let you, yes. I don't think so. You would only have strong and positive mystical experiences. If you manifest things like fear, that was already in your head, and being in a high-frequency environment, that will manifest. Okay, another question, the last one. Who had access to these pyramids to make these types of trips and have these experiences? Was it for the mystery circles or anyone could enter? Back then, pre-dynastic Egypt was holographic. Anyone could access the pyramid and do this. But then I think it became something more exclusive, right? Mystic schools were formed, initiations, etc. That was much later. Yes, Illuminati secret societies enter there outside the public eye. Classified, but it can be mentioned if you decide so. Asks Robert. I don't think rituals are done in there, right? I don't know, but it seems to me that it is a reunion point. But today, everything is possible. Asks Robert. And is there Federation activity in that area today? Yes, it is under constant supervision, but it is the area of the Cabal today. Asks Robert. Does it mean anything that they are basically 3 pyramids in Egypt? Is that for any reason or not? There are many pyramids in Egypt, but the Great Pyramid is the main one and the base of the others.
comments Robert. But I imagine that this disposition is not accidental. Not the Orion one. But for Egypt, Orion is Osiris. Orion has nothing to do with reptiles and grays. What do you mean, not the Orion one? I do not understand this phrase, Svaru. The three main pyramids of Giza are aligned with Orion, but that is in honor or in line with Osiris. Osiris, Orion for the Egyptians. Asks Robert. What is the relationship between the obelisks and the pyramids, if there is any? What were they for, or what do they indicate? Yes. They are all over the world. It is atonism, based on Egypt. It is a phallic symbol pointing upwards holding a pyramid that represents the three deities of the constellation of Triangulum, Enlil, Anu, and Ea. The obelisk is an offering to those three deities. It is a look up. Where there is an obelisk, it means that the Illuminati have control over that place, or it is one of their main bases, cities. It is power antenna too. What do those obelisks have to do with Enlil then? The obelisk's people are Cabal. Not only Enlil, also Anu and Ea. Anu equals Almighty Creator God. Ea equals Yahweh or Allah. Enlil equals Elohim gods, plural. Yahweh is not a person. It is an event. It is a creative orgasm. It is the Big Bang as a Yahweh, creative explosion. It is a hijacked symbol like so many others. Asks Robert. And do you know if it is true that there was a fourth black pyramid? Because the others, they say, were white. There was no pyramid of that color, nor any extra. There are traces that there was another, but it was never finished, and it did not pass the stage of the base and foundations. However, yes, there was another Sphinx. That is why Ishtar stands on two lions that symbolize Egypt, the two Sphinxes. Asks Robert, do you know anything more about that? Yes, there were two. One succumbed, and they were like the caretakers of the area at the entrance to the valley. Below, there are two dumps, one below the other. They are ancient. They contain many secrets. All this is hyper-documented, and it is not my opinion alone. Asks Robert. Do you know what's in there? Yes, I even have the map. It is an extraterrestrial base with everything that you would expect to be found inside an extraterrestrial base. Of course, they don't want that to leak to the public. Asks Robert. But is it abandoned or active? It is abandoned because it suffered a lot of damage from the flood. There are two, one on top of the other that is below. Asks Robert. And are they of the same ET race? Do you know what race it belongs to? It was the Federation base, therefore it had many races there, including us. Compound base, not race-specific. Basically, the base was positive. Later, the Egyptian culture around the pyramids grew. Asks Robert. A question. There is something that is not very clear to me. It is about the subject of slaves. There are many geoglyphs with images like slaves, and many will cling to that when we say that slavery did not exist in Egypt. I am not the only one who claims that there were no slaves.
But that doesn't mean that slaves were never used throughout those 10,000 years. But as a culture, it did not use slaves, but workers. In this picture, those are prisoners of war. Notice that above, they are tied around the neck. That is prisoners. Below, they are pulling things. That is workers. The concept of slaves is biblical, as selling Enlil's side, as the bad guys, as having Israelites as slaves. They do not conceive that people could work like this. But not only me. Many terrestrial researchers strongly assure that these are not slaves. They are workers. It is the Romans who imposed the concept of slavery in Egypt to fulfill an agenda. Short conversation with Aneka. Asks Robert, do you remember or know of some historical fact around that time?
Many, like when the base was taken by force by the dark side, with Thoth, of negative line in command of those who wanted to destroy and drive away the Federation from Egypt. This, coming from the Archon forces entering to want to dominate the planet, using the lunar matrix to their benefit. Thoth became Anubis, and with him darkness covered Egypt, because his forces slaughtered many people there, forcing the Federation to seal the base and retreat, damaged and with hundreds in black bags, dead. That is why the Federation is here in force, in large numbers, with total military superiority, and without large surface bases, only safe houses worldwide. They look like normal houses. They're used by three-letter agencies as well.
Asks Robert. That is to say that the Federation base was abandoned by an attack.
Yes.
Asks Robert. Reptile and Archon attack?
Stamped tickets. But they have high-tech in there that prevents entry, like any Doom. Archon reptile attack, exactly. It is a refuge area for the Cabal, as expected. Still a lot of Federation ship activity over the pyramids and around that area.
Recent short conversation with Yashi. Under and in the dumps there, under Giza in general, not only the Sphinx, there is a large underground city, abandoned, referred to by the ancients as the Labyrinth. It was an old Federation base, with multiracial members. You know the date of its construction, more or less, the Sphinx, and date of pyramids construction, more or less? Directly under the Sphinx, there are several chambers that lead to a library, and under the library there is the tomb of Osiris, and towards the pyramids there is an entrance to several tunnels that lead to the pyramids and to the labyrinth or dump below. About dates. Before 12,500, time gets funny and impossible to calculate due to the plasticity it holds. But as an educated linear guess, the Sphinx is over 35,000 years old. I know the pyramids are also said to be as much as 30,000 years old, but to the best of my data, they are closer to 15,000 years old, Giza, and some are as young as 12,000 to 11,000 years old. As I said above, you cannot calculate time that is not linear, as it was not back then. And the pyramids at Giza do not show the same water damage that the Sphinx does display. So they could not have been built at the same time. And the water damage in the pyramids give you a clue that it was produced by minor floods, such as the ones the Nile would produce, and not because of a cataclysmic inundation event, water damage, such as the one the Sphinx does display. Meaning, it was totally submerged at the time of the flood, coming from Tiamat's destruction. And it was always used as the Federation base then, at that time too, before the Matrix? Again, it is hard to tell, but it was a Federation base for tens of thousands of years. The underground base is immense and consists of two basic immense layers, one above the other. The entrance holes to the dump below Giza are only 30 to 60 meters deep, very shallow. Sphinx is a lot older, and there used to be two, side by side. Svaru. When the 3D matrix was imposed upon Earth to control the negative ones, the Van Allen belts, good people were trapped there as well, as you know. The Federation was weak, and it has suffered heavy losses due to the Tiamat fighting and wars. So, the 3D Earth Van Allen etheric shield was supposed to be a temporary measure to enclose the negative ones until the Federation could recover and find out what to do with them. But we were not going to leave the good ones there to rot. The plan was to go there and extract them, teaching them to ascend on their own in the case of the indigenous population. So the direct so-called extraterrestrials stranded on Earth after the 3D was imposed 12,500 years ago were mostly extracted by starship, leaving behind only the ones who wished to stay and the indigenous population. And those who stayed were to be taught to escape the Earth on their own, with no need of a starship or assistance from a starship crew. Jump rooms were created where the souls could escape on their own without the use of direct technology and only of so-called etheric enhancers. Those etheric enhancers augmented the frequency and intention of a consciousness to escape on their own to any star system they wished to go, the pyramids. But in general, people don't even need etheric enhancers such as the pyramids. They can learn to escape using mind alone, their intention, their consciousness alone. Mind and consciousness, even in 3D. It is that strong. But they needed a guide, at least at first. A crew was dispatched to enlighten them, help them learn to escape the matrix on their own, to trust themselves and handle their own lives, to teach them to liberate themselves and to never again fall to oppression. We are here, again, to do what we have always done. This is not new for us. We are just doing it again. This video is recommended to be watched because of the images used. I am missing images of this topic to illustrate the beginning, because there are none on Earth, and I have to generate them somehow here, basing myself on the best ones that I find there. The images that I will use here I have found on the web, and therefore I do not know what copyright they have, but they are necessary since we are talking about pictograms and symbols mostly. Gosha asked yesterday or the other day, why such a big deal with the symbols? It turns out that it is a language that many races can decipher. Not so much as, say, a manuscript in Taigetan. What the archaeologists have told you is worse than rubbish. Many know these things and prefer to be silent. Others, like the Cairo Museum's curator of antiquities, Havas, is on the Federation's list of individuals to be arrested for crimes against humanity, for not releasing and controlling what is in Egypt. The official story is rubbish. There have been thousands of technologically advanced civilizations on Earth for millions of linear years. Forget all that about Precambrian, Jurassic, Iron Age, Bronze, etc. It's total rubbish. Dinosaurs? Not as they are painted. They are just species that are no longer. They are no longer here. But the Brontosaurus this, the Triceratops that, the Tyrannosaurus something else, that's garbage. They never existed. It is another NASA and Apollo 11. Let's not go in there at this point. Civilizations enter, grow, flourish, come to a point and disappear. It is a cycle of life of civilizations. Some short, some longer. Some local, some interstellar. The Lyrian human base is very ancient. It is lost in linear time. Lyrian is said to be a base, but it is known that they did not arise or evolve there, just that the continuity of the historical records of the Federation is lost there. Before the Lyrians, there are clear vestiges of advanced civilizations, even on Earth, but no documented connection. Most do not know why or who they were. Others, yes, they are known, but by us and the Federation, among others. Others, yes, they are known on Earth, but it's silenced. A large part of cave paintings are not what they seem. They are not ancient proto-art, hunting stories poorly drawn on the walls and ceilings of caves. It's encrypted data, left there by members of an advanced interstellar civilization, but with their race members chased in desperation, hidden in the caverns, trying to leave a trace that they existed, that they were there. They painted them with full knowledge of chemistry, of the duration of paints and pigments, for someone else to find them in the future and have the mind and knowledge to see past just people in loincloths chasing animals with a spear. That is encrypted and encrypted knowledge, so that it is not erased or classified as dangerous information. They painted that in despair, while many were dying. They painted them crying. It's a, "This happened to us, don't forget us, don't make the same mistakes." Why did they die? The reptiles hunted them. They came to Earth fleeing from them during the Great Expansion. Animals are stars and constellations. Humans with spears are vectors of movement. It contains constellations and star formations that can only be interpreted from space by another interstellar civilization. Contains maps, escape routes, stargate locations, people count, who they were, more detailed of the surface of the pre-Tiamat Earth and other planets, who hunted them, who they were, who talked to them. Now I understand more the importance of symbols, a universal intrastellar language among races. Yes, on Earth it is said that mathematics is the universal language, that all the civilizations of the universe would understand it. Not so, or in a limited way. As I have already explained, Base 10 mathematics is something human and wrong, incomplete. While 1 + 1 = 2 everywhere, as mathematical formulas increase in complexity, they begin to differ more and more until they become completely incompatible and incomprehensible to many races. But if there is another universal language that all races understand, star maps. Representing stars as animals has always been customary, even today with constellations. Any race understands constellations and stars. And even today, the UFO formations are telling you where they are coming from, but you don't listen, you don't see beyond. Notice how the animals are coming out of the portal. Little humans are ships. Spears are vectors of movement. The luminosity of the star becomes the type of an animal. Their position with each other is important as well, but not everything can be viewed from Earth's perspective. Some are as they would look from another point in space, point which is also specified. Jumping forward, returning to Egypt. I told you that the pyramids weren't Orion, and I know you've been quite shocked. Don't think I am not aware of this. I have always loved this image, but that is deliberate misinformation information, so that humans do not look further. Old misinformation, so that they only see Orion. Okay, so I have presented this to you. The star above is Anu. The one on the left is Enlil. The one below is Ea, the trinity of ancient Egypt. The stars are named in honor of the three founding gods of Egypt, but because in the minds of the Egyptians they come from there. Now look at this. The constellation Triangulum is at the top of the obelisk. That is why it is an obelisk. It's a look up. It is ancient Egyptian cult. It is everywhere in the world. It still rules. They are still the gods of earth. The elite know this. Ancient Egyptian cult, but to what? Just so I do not get lost. To their gods Anunnaki, Almighty God Anu, Ea, Yahweh, Enlil, Elohim. Asks Robert. Is that where the Anunnaki come from? Regressive reptiles? No, there is still more to say on this. We will explain later. With the best data I have, it was Thoth himself who came up with that pyramid configuration to match Orion. Other data shows me that it was Khufru who did it, but the dates do not coincide. The best ancient data tells us that they were aligned with Orion as a distractor. The documents are ancient Egyptian. The important ones are these three stars, as we already said. Okay, now look at this symbol of divinity. It is a person, a god inside what? He has wings and he is inside. It means starship. Asks Robert, Taygeta? Taygeta, yes, although it is also widely used in the Pleiades in general. In this case, it is from Asterope Elohi. This is a symbol of divinity found in almost all ancient cultures. Notice that the symbol of divinity is on top of something. Maya, there it is again, above a square door. Gilgamesh, going through the door, portal. In almost all ancient cultures, the sun in pictogram is represented as a square or rectangle, only using a solar disk when it is very specific, like the sun in general. In ancient Egypt, the symbol of the sun is a square. The pyramids look like a square seen from the air. It also symbolizes the space. And the circle with an X in the middle means exact place. But why did they make these symbols of doors? What did they want to transmit and to whom? It was no longer a society in despair, hiding. No, I have left that point behind to connect later. We are now in the golden age of Egypt, before classical Egypt. Here, and during the construction of the pyramids, it was a multicultural spaceport. The builders of the pyramids were not human. Each side of the pyramid measures 365 Egyptian measures, cubits in English. Each side represents the procession of a solar year. Returning to portals. Why square? Dimensional portal open in the sun. That's why. Message. To achieve progress and divinity, you must enter the portal in the sun. Now, what is this? Comments Robert. This one is big. Look at the shape of the supposedly missing part of the solar disk, the cleft in the stone. Why a bull? Asks Robert. Taurus? Yes, Taurus. But why Taurus? The image is an Apis bull. It's ancient, thousands and thousands of years old, and of stellar origin. It means Taurus constellation. It has a sun between its horns. That's solar worshipping on Earth. The serpent means many things. Knowledge, feminine as linked to DNA, and the flight path of a starship. So it represents a starship coming out of the solar portal from Taurus constellation. Here you can see how old the Apis bull as a symbol for Taurus is. When the snake is on the forehead of someone, it means its head is like the sun divine, godlike, and knowledge comes out of its head. It does not represent reptilian races. Look at the black rectangle on his behind. That is not just any bull, it is Taurus. Now, what are those freckles around his eye? They are a group of stars. Stars that are there in that position in Taurus, the Pleiades. Again, I don't have a correct translation. You have to pass this group of stars when you travel from Earth towards Pleiades constellation. Other bull Taurus in cave paintings contain the Pleiades on their shoulder. That is why they are Taurus or Toro Apis. Okay, what is this now? It is called the Tree of Life, but it's not a plant, only as the symbol. It is a constellation, and the flowers are stars. It maintains the portal from which all life has supposedly appeared. The problem here resides in that I cannot find any human star chart with that constellation, but it's in the general direction of Pegasus. Check this out. Above is the symbol of divinity, which is essentially being able to fly. What is below is the portal as in Tijuanaco. The frame is not flowers, they are stars. The divinity symbol above represents what? Gods, which, Enlil, Anu, Ea. Where are they? In the constellation of Triangulum. What is just below the constellation of Triangulum? A dimensional portal that is within a group of 19 stars, 19 flowers, in the direction of M33 Andromeda. They give you the location of another portal. Let's return to Egypt. Ishtar, or Isis. She has wings, but is not flying. She is seated. What is she seated on? 2 lions. 2 sphinxes, like the 2 that were in Egypt. Lions, Egypt. Lions, sun, solar god. It means that Ishtar was a goddess to the Egyptians. What does she have in her hands? Egyptian symbols of eternal life. Eternal life. Temporal manipulation. Ishtar has 2, 1 in each hand. Why does she have bird's feet? Because she also has wings. Because Ishtar flies. Owls mean dimensional portal. That's why the elite also perceive them this way. Why? It means that Ishtar dominates the portals. She has 1 on each side, watching over her. M97. Modern scientists do not accept it, but they are 2 wormholes, entrances and exits. Close up. They are not owls. Ishtar. Tell me, what bird flies sitting? Comments Robert. One that uses the ship. Ishtar has her wings spread. She is flying. What is this? Comments Robert. The feathered serpent. Flying one too. Let's go back to Tiwanaku. What does this solar god have in his hands? Clearer here. Comments Robert. 2 snakes. Why does it have an owl face? Take a closer look at what they are. They are 2 birds. He has 2 long birds in his hands, Quetzalcoatl. Why does Ishtar also have a snake on her head? She has 9 snakes on her head, because she holds the knowledge of the 9 sisters of the Pleiades. And it is not a snake, it is represented as a snake that looks feathered. Head, sun, as can be seen in the crown of thorns of Jesus Christ. What is that feathered snake? Here it's more obvious. I present to you Quetzalcoatl. Comments Robert. They are ships. Ships with high energy magnetic turbine technology leave contrails. Feathered snake, spacecraft leaving contrail because it is in atmospheric flight. Palenque. Part of the same. Look below the solar god, the same, propulsion. Not only was Ishtar traveling seated, more portals. Asks Robert, does this one work? Yes, but it doesn't depend on stone or anything on Earth. That only marks the location when activated from another site. All these portals are called Sun Gate or similar. Quetzalcoatl resting. If we go there, what would happen with the portal activated? Nothing if it's not activated. You would go somewhere else. Where? It depends on where the portal has been programmed to take you. But mostly they are a message. Go to the sun to escape from here. Comments Robert. But how can we get to the sun? With propulsion, with a feathered serpent ship. Go to the sun to escape from here. Here where? Where is here? From this solar system. As I have told you before, not all interstellar races can travel through space, creating their own wormholes. Most still depend on portals and wormhole maps. Not us, as our technology overcomes this problem. Who has left this message to whom? Go into the sun to escape from here. The previous civilization. Message for the future. For the technological civilization that manages to see the message. For the civilizations that exist here, with enough development to see this. Some people on Earth are awakening to this knowledge, but they have it vastly incomplete. The defenders of Pakal as the astronaut and not just a king of Palenque. There are other researchers who are also in this, such as von Daniken, among few others. But they don't understand the stellar perspective. The portal below does not exist. It is only a stone. But it marks the place where it would open if activated from another side. The portals of the sun are a message. Go to the sun to find the portal. They are not necessarily the portal. Comments Robert. Okay, do you know if any have been activated in recent times? Portals? Yes, they are constantly activated, but not those inside tourist sites. It is a message to whoever has the mind to see it, not for someone or for a specific race. It is going to the sun to find the portal. The other portals have nothing to do with it, because they do not depend on the sun. They are just part of another technology. However, they retain their square or rectangular shape, which means in stellar and ancient language, portal place. Like the monolith from 2001 Space Odyssey, also a portal. Another symbol used for portal, not solar, is a spiral. It is used in many places, even here among races. It is found in countless cave paintings. Notice that all the portals of this class have the same shape and the same dimensions. The monolith fits inside the door of Tijuanaco. The fit is exact. Comments Robert. Yes, the same proportions. And the black color would represent the portal hole, I guess. So if someone were to cross that obelisk, they would appear in another place. Or that is just the exit of a portal, not the entrance. Yes, a cube. Entry and exit portal, according to the frequency with which it is approached. 2 times 4 times 9 ratio of proportions of these portals. Thinking. I still don't understand how to use the portal. If I want to cross it, where am I going? Where do I put the settings? I refer to one of these square doors, for example, rectangular rather. The portals like this cannot be activated from there. They only mark where the exit would be if someone else with that technology activated them. Why there? Because they obey places of planetary ley lines in which the energy is more amplified by the same energy process of the pyramids. That's what I mean. Who activates them? Or how to know from here where they will go and if they are active? I speak of portals as entrances here. You don't have them there. You don't control them. That is why they are telling you in other places that you need a ship to get to the portal. So there is no entry once on the Earth where I could control where I go, but reptiles use them and decide where they go. Those are other portals like CERN. To understand the relevance of what I have said here today, you need to have an interstellar race mentality, not seeing things from the angle of looking at the ancient ones as less, as underdeveloped. Technologically speaking, and above all spiritually, they were far above the current terrestrial civilization. Comments Robert. Kalel, you were also in Egypt, right?
Yes, this symbol that they call the key of life is actually inspired by something more tangible and simple. It really means temporal manipulation. That's why it handles life as eternal. The symbol looks like and is held in the hand just like a ship's joystick. The fact that you hold it in your hand means that you are holding a ship. It is the symbol of the command of a ship. Once you understand all this, it is not difficult. It becomes rather difficult to think as before.
Asks Robert. Is that a part of your ship? That will be the symbol, but in a photograph. Thank you. This is amazing. Awesome. This is a fighter plane, but from Earth.
They carry virtually the same joystick, a Suzy and a Spitfire. The exact origin of this symbol. That they deny that? Whatever. They say that there are several hieroglyphs engraved, one on top of the other, and that it is a pareidolia, a helicopter, a ship, and 2 spaceships. Or a plane and a spaceship. But we say that they are 2 ships.
Asks Robert. Or it could be a submarine?
Yes, although we say it is a boat, it can be a submarine.
Asks Robert. Wow, is that you? I'm not referring to the grey one, but a big one.
I can't tell if the image is real or not. This is a matrix explanation of the glyphs.
But there were greys in Egypt?
It was not at all unusual for there to be greys in Egypt.
Asks Robert. And how do you really feel now, after so many adventures and time jumps?
one gets used to a strange life. A life that few people, even in 5D, understand. You don't really have an identity, because you lose it with so much jumping around. But it is something that defines you later as your identity, and you are fine and at peace with it. I would also see it as having access to multiple timelines of myself. Not having an identity becomes what defines your identity. So you have attributes that are not shared by other people who are supposedly of the same species or race.
Do you feel understood by other Taigetans?
One transcends that or that need. It is understood why you aren't understood, and with that understanding comes the acceptance of the situation. It can be equal to or greater than some situations between humans. One transcends the need for companionship in that regard.
I have more proof, but this is what I have for now to demonstrate that Atlantis, or the Egyptian and Sumerian civilizations, were of world dominance. Reference image known to you. Notice that she is standing on two lions that symbolize Egypt, as I have already told you. Although I don't have time to look for more images right now, there are more with characters standing on two lions. This from the Egyptian Sumerian side. This man is found all over the world. It means holding the knowledge of flight and starships, one in each hand. They are not snakes. They are birds, but long birds like snakes, referring to this. That's the snake coming out of the Apis bull and the heads of Egyptian royals. Representation of a ship in atmospheric flight. That's the Y of Tijuanaco. The solar portal with the key above the man, the same man that is represented in Sumeria as here. It's the same one. Same here again. Above you said, I have more evidence, but this is what I have on hand now to demonstrate that Atlantis or the Egyptian and Sumerian civilizations were of world dominance. Are they the same? Atlantis and Egyptian civilization? No, Gosha. Just that the civilizations are connected. Egypt was federation. Atlantis, reptile confederation. We have not yet got into the topic of civilizations, because there have been more than what they tell you, many more. Here, they are all telling you about the portal in the sun and how to get to it. Every one of them, except the last one, pointing to the portal in the sun. Comments Robert. I'm looking for one where everyone has blue eyes. It's hard to figure out all this. What does how to get to the portal of the sun mean? Well, difficult for the normal humans, I think. Not if you have a ship, as they assume you do, if you know how to interpret that as a portal, and not as primitive religious garbage as they say it is. That's what I mean. It is for a civilization who already has ships and that knows about this stuff. They are messages left by the previous ones, so that only interstellar races can see and interpret the data. Fascinating. Asks Robert. This is a planetary civilization? Not one. several interconnected planetary civilizations. In the last one, the solar disk with enormous wings. This represents a ship. The solar disk is sometimes accompanied by 1 or 2 cobras or snakes, symbolizing we come out of the sun. It also represents a discoidal ship. You just have to understand that what the author of those photos has not mentioned is that the time frame is out of date. In other words, the constructions of those buildings did not occur simultaneously. Cobras or snakes symbolize knowledge and wisdom, for their symbolism of or control over DNA. Note the conjunction wisdom, knowledge, DNA, spaceship, as in wisdom and knowledge alters DNA. Mind control or gene change using wisdom and knowledge, not test tubes. That's human interpretation, because that's all they see, because that's all they know. They project themselves, humans, but it does not reflect the truth. To change a particular gene, which is actually associated with a group of genes, not just one, with a goal to cause a change in the individual or group of individuals, a precise stimulus of belief perception form is used, which has been studied and known that would alter or bring about the desired change. But it varies from individual to individual, as your individual perception varies. But that's the basic theory. Svaru, something I don't understand. You said they left these symbols for the stellar civilizations to decipher. But when have they left them? I want to put it in some chronology. I understand that it was when they were already conquered by reptiles and escaping, right? I imagine they already lost the star connection. When was this? It's difficult to put it in chronology, because there isn't any. It's all mixed up. It's a constant. Look at the solar portal. That's the way out. And also, another element is missing that I have not had the opportunity to share with you. That there were more planetary civilizations, and their influence is there among known civilizations, today archaeological sites. That image is not related to genetics. The bags, yes. The tree of life, no. The watch is a watch. The bags are containers of knowledge to be shared or sown. It symbolizes a bag with seeds that are being spread through the already tilled field. At that time, that's how seeding took place, with a bag of seeds. In itself, it is what we do here today, sowing ideas, doubts, concepts that will grow and modify society. And the watch, it is not divided into 12 hours because they did not use the same form of measurement. It has 9 sections, which is a mathematical basis. But it represents the 9 planets of the Pleiades, from which those Elohim, represented with or as the bearded ones, come from. Wings, they can fly. They are gods, ships. Watch, they are technological. They dominate time. missing here another equivalent symbol used, the ring portal. They have snakes on their heads, which means they have knowledge, wisdom. Also, the head is the sun, and the snakes are ships, portal knowledge, because knowledge comes from the portal, because the Elohim came through the portal to give that knowledge. And he has a pineal gland in his hand, because he has a connection with the ethereal, like other symbology in the head, feathers, for example. And because they manipulate the pineal gland. Pineal gland in the hand of someone means he controls the connection to the other realms. Being with wings can fly. Being with wings only on the head or feathers, as an Indian chief, only the head can fly, meaning has a connection with beings of higher planes, spiritual connection, and is an enlightened being. To clarify something about Ishtar, it is one more example of a positive character who was flipped in favor of the negatives. Cream and lies have been added to it to make the concept work for them. And what is said about Ishtar has little or nothing to do with the woman who really existed. So-called scholars believe that human genetics came from her as a progenitor. The truth is that she is the one who has altered the genes. She is the geneticist, but not the one that negatively altered them. The one who went in to try to correct the problem. The one who tried to liberate the repressed ones from the frequencies of the newly imposed matrix. Giver of knowledge. In the book of Genesis, the one who gave the apple of knowledge to Adam, Adamic race, Homo Atlantis. A young woman who gave knowledge, freedom, and technology. An expert geneticist, and who flew seated, and you only flew sitting on a chair in a ship. The gods of old are almost always related to space explorers, many of them of our race. Ishtar, as it is painted in history, even the one written by the Egyptians, never existed. The concept of it was based on visitors. Yes, Ishtar and Osiris were people. But the rest is cream added by the ancients themselves, because that was done a lot at that time. An example of this are the Greeks and their exaggerations about stories that did happen. For example, Medusa did exist, but it was not as the Greeks portray it. Medusa is none other than Ishtar herself again. But it is symbolism taken literally. And why do reptilians and Masons use the Ishtar symbol? Because they are Atonists or worshippers of the sun. But that comes from the Enkis branch. Judaism is not monotheistic, that is false. But why do they use the Ishtar symbol? Is it true that they do? Because it is one of the bases in Egypt that they still use. Yes, they do. But black one. Notre Dame is a temple to black Ishtar. Representation of inevitable duality arising in lower densities. Opposites. one cancelling out the other, until only one remains. The negative black Ishtar is also worshipped on earth under many names, but it blends in with the white one. It is more of a concept seen or translated by the onlooker. Asks Robert, what was Ishtar doing on earth? The reason she has been on earth was to remove the lunar matrix. It was the Federation that imposed it using a combat-damaged biosphere of the Andromedans. It was temporary, and we proceeded to withdraw lunar control over Earth. That was the mission. But the invading reptiles had already made plans to use said matrix to their convenience and attacked us. And once again, we had to withdraw. The pyramids were part of the system to raise the frequency of the planet and were part of a pyramidal network all placed on planetary ley lines for greater effect and placed at strategic points throughout the planet. Inanna is a name also used as a reference to Ishtar, and roughly translated, it means the one that favors and the one that gives. The problem is that today, the name Isis is badly associated, so I don't suggest using it. Today, it not only refers to the terrorist group, but it is a reference to the Black Ishtar that the Cabal worships. Asks Robert, what does the word Egypt mean? It wasn't called that back then. It was only known as the center, referring to the center of the world or as the capital, because it was seen as a base, not a place or city. In itself, it is allusive to two lions, Egypt, which comes from two great kingdoms, Egypt of the Lower Nile and Egypt of the Upper Nile, where Cairo is Giza and Alexandria to the north. That is why there were two sphinxes, of which only one remains. Asks Robert, and the city of Cairo already existed? Or what was the capital of that metropolis? There were two capitals, Alexandria and Cairo? It was officially Thebes, but the capital was constantly moving. But what is taken as the metropolis was Giza, or the center, nowadays Cairo. But later it was Alexandria for its position as a naval base or post in the Mediterranean. Asks Robert, where did Ishtar live? Ishtar lived mostly in her ship. That's why she was also perceived as a deity. She lived in the sun, because the ship for the Egyptians shone like the sun, which is only superheated atmosphere. But she also lived in buildings or palaces of that time, which the sands of time have already erased. Everything in the Nile Valley, more than anything. It was not a single place. Could you tell us approximately years? At what time was Ishtar there? Years. 10,500 BC. Impossible to pin down. Asks Robert, what does it mean? It is not a symbol. It is a tool. North, south, east, west. That's an astronomical measurement device. It is placed on another disk that represents the sun and gives you your position in the sky from the position in which you are. It is a GPS.
Comments Robert. Wow, like a compass, GPS.
Stellar navigation, but of positions of the stars, of constellations. That symbol was transformed into the cross of Christ, where supposedly he was nailed. Christ is the sun, with its crown of thorns, the race, and is in the center of the cardinal points, north, south, east, west. Same symbol, just transformed to meet an agenda. Asks Robert. Stellar navigation, astrotheology. I mean, the Nazis had the knowledge or some knowledge of all this that we are talking about? Yes, and this knowledge has been passed around among the members of the secret societies. It is not something that I am inventing, nor is it a theory. It was just a tool, because they are Elohim measurement tools. Comments Robert. In other words, it is not something aesthetic, and that's it. There is something deeper in all that symbolism. Yes. Asks Robert. But what did the Nazis want that knowledge for? Have they left outside Earth yet at that time? The Nazis used that as a symbol. This time, yes, it is a symbol of wisdom, that one is a master of something. That is why it was a medal for the high elements of the Nazi party and the German military. As best represented with Earth devices as in 4 sextants, ocean navigation. Devices placed together, marking 4 directions. It was a handheld device used to read star charts. Manual tool. Does it look like in the image? It looks very much like on that image. Very basic. It was basically a ruler with a calculus bar and a distance measuring tool on each corner. Nowadays, they are no longer used, but there is one in the museum on board this craft. The Nazis used the Iron Cross as a symbol of being special, of power, because it made them be in likeness to the gods of old. It is used by the Queen of England and the Pope also, as well as the US military. They manufactured their Hannibal ships and were planning to reach Aldebaran, Sindriel. The data I have tell me that they did not get out through the Van Allen bands. But with all the technology that the Elohim had, wasn't that GPS a little primitive for them? It is not primitive. It is high technology. That is just the measurement, the device or the key. You need to place it on a so-called solar disk, but that contains the celestial vault of the constellations. It's a hologram technology. It's a little computer. Asks Robert. And this technology was owned by the Nazis? They didn't have that, but they did have the symbology. The Iron Cross is an old Babylonian symbol, and it's a starship navigation tool. But it's off-world, and that's why it's been adopted on Earth. You can see it again with the Nazis. Notice how the Germans, Nazis, and the British Crown use the very same symbol, not by chance. The cross itself, as an instrument, is like a manual sextant for a ship. Manual sextant? What is that? Asks Robert. Like a navigator? To fix position. Comments Robert. Yes, that. What the sailors use to guide yourself in the sea and orient yourself. An old GPS, yes. The cross works as a technological means. It contains north, south, east, and west, but it refers to 3 dimensions in space. But it is used mostly against a map being over a planet, whatever it is. It helps to fix manually your position on the horizon. For the cross, the horizon is the galactic plane that you know as the Milky Way, from how it is seen from Earth. According to Greek legends, someone who was spreading the milk through the sky. Only in the crown or in Nazi symbology, they are just that, symbologies. But it's like wanting to say that they are theirs. But it is not so exactly, because those instruments are still used today by countless races. Modern ones contain the map in the form of a hologram. You take the X between your fingers and the star map appears in front of you. You turn it with your fingers and it gives you your position. Useful for support. But on spaceships, they are rarely used anymore. It's just support. Something you can wear over yourself, hanging around your neck sometimes, or as jewelry. And you still carry your maps wherever you go, even on foot. The spaceships, of course, have it incorporated into the navigation systems and do not need that instrument. They end up like sextants on modern ships. GPS and all that is used, but they still carry paper maps or charts and sextants. Even in ships such as modern submarine aircraft carriers, entertainment boats, or container ships. Asks Robert. And does the cross have to have that shape? The one with the crown? What ships do you mean? Yours or human ones? In the circle, 8 plus 1 in the center, 9. Pleiades M45. What's above there is a ship, not a bird. That is a starship. Human sea ships, yes. The cross has that shape as the image indicates because it gives the circular or parabola planes as a sextant too. A human sextant is 1/4 of a non-human sextant, because the human sextant only has to measure a single plane, and the non-human has to measure 3 planes plus its own, where the spaceship is currently moving. The origin of those symbols on Earth, the cross, all coming from a simple stellar chart reading tool. But it's what it symbolizes, not what it is. From this old ancient brotherhood in Egypt, the Illuminati came out from. But how can you be certain that's where the symbol and its meaning comes from? I mean, is it possible to track the origin of some of those symbols? I mean, who used it first and how and when? Simple, very simple, because we remember. That's very relevant. Also, because it is documented. Humans have old documents held in secret societies that talk about this. This is part of the knowledge that is or was forbidden for the commoner.
This subject is critical. It changes the whole concept of everything about the knowledge that is falsely given to you by the controlling cabal. It changes everything. The history of the Earth. The fact that it is known that there were countless other interstellar civilizations on Earth. that the ancient peoples were not backward, as they were more advanced than the present civilization itself. These are objects, relics, and ruins that can only be understood from the perspective of someone stellar, and not just from any star. This information changes the world. It dissolves the cabal and its lies. It exposes them to the light. It gives back to the people of Earth their true history.